I loved my job, but it was killing me.
That's today's guest, band director, author, and wellness advocate Lesley Moffat, on what can happen when the stress of music teaching stops being just stress. Welcome to Music Ed Insights. I'm leadership trainer and former band director Alan Fire, here with composer and co-college music education program head Steve Shanley.
Each episode, Alan and I talk with national thought leaders in music education with practical insights for K-12 music educators.
Steve, tell us about our guest.
Lesley Moffat is a veteran band director, author, speaker, and host of the Band Director Boot Camp podcast. She is the founder and CEO of the Empowered Music Educator Academy and has spent more than 30 years teaching middle school and high school band in the Pacific Northwest. Her books include I Love My Job, But It's Killing Me, Love the Job, Lose the Stress, and The Balanced Band Director. Find Lesley's full bio, show notes, and resources at musicedinsights.com. Alan, what was the takeaway you had from this episode?
I appreciated how directly Lesley connected wellness with effectiveness. It's not just about feeling good, although there's nothing wrong with that. I like feeling good, but it's pay attention to what your body is telling you so you can keep doing the work well. So if you're one of those giving everything to your program and wondering why you're exhausted, this one's for you. How about you, Steve?
What stood out to me was the practicing analogy. We tell students that a little thoughtful practice saves time and frustration later for future them, and Lesley makes a similar point about wellness. Taking a walk, eating better, setting a boundary, or even just asking for help can feel like it takes time away from the job, but it might actually make the job more sustainable and more effective.
And I did love her reminder that when she narrowed the program down to the events and commitments that really mattered, the students benefited too. And I am also a fan of prioritization. Less burnout, more energy, healthier program, healthier you. Members of our Insider program help support conversations like this. You can learn more at our website. But for now, let's get to Lesley Moffat.
Lesley Moffat, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you.
Well, let's start with the topic of wellness, which is something we hear about frequently from our listeners. And not shockingly, and simply put, music teachers are stressed out. We'll get to some suggestions in a bit, but first I'm curious, are there some things that you see us frequently getting wrong when it comes to wellness?
Well, a little backstory here. I loved my job, but it was killing me. And my personal wellness, physical, mental well-being, emotional well-being was directly tied to the stress of my job. And I had a hard time admitting that for a long time because I thought that would make me look weak. But honestly, I think something about wellness is it's a part of a bigger picture. And our jobs as music educators are hard. They are hard and they take a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of mental bandwidth. And that has a lot of impact on our health, our wellness, how we function in the world. And I personally, for many decades of teaching, would work and work and work and push off all of the signs my body would give me that things weren't going well because I had a concert or a trip or something coming up that was more important. And then I'd go do that big event and then I would crash, sometimes for a week, sometimes be in the hospital, because I couldn't understand how to find a healthier way to do my work. I was letting it overrule my life. Because I loved what I was doing. It was a pretty unhealthy relationship I had as I look back on it. But I think a lot of us, to your question of what we get wrong, I didn't understand how much control I could have of my own wellness. And that to me was so empowering.
What do you mean you didn't realize that you were in control of your own wellness?
Well, I was just going, go, 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 do, do, do. I had the 0 hour jazz band at 6:30 downbeat every day, taught all day, did the after school meetings and sectionals and rehearsals, the nighttime band events, sporting events, all of those things, meetings. So I felt like that was controlling me. So when I ate, it was fast food crap, pick that up. All of those things that I had to do for convenience so I could do my job. And and there's a long story behind this, but when I did some major shifting and started to realize I needed to be in control of my own health. And that started with things like, what am I eating? How am I moving my body so it doesn't hurt all the time? What I found, what I was doing is I started to do some things that helped me become better organized. I was pretty organized, but I mean, like I had to set up some healthy boundaries that allowed me to be fully focused and present at work, but allow enough time and enough space where I could then be in control of what am I going to grocery shop for? I'm going to prepare my own meals. When I started doing things like that and making sure I went for a walk each day, my body physically changed. My brain physically changed. I started to learn what made my body feel good. I was in control.
You didn't go into detail, and that's okay, but you said you would push off all of the signs your body would give you that things weren't going well. In my last couple of years of teaching, I went to the doctor. I haven't ever shared this with the listeners. So this might be TMI, but I developed some strange digestive symptoms that, in short, got traced back to an excess of stomach acid. And my doctor said, "You're stressed out." And I said, "No, I'm not. I don't feel anxiety, and my heart is fine. My blood pressure is normal." He's like, "No, right. Those things are fine. It's showing up in this." And he prescribed a proton pump inhibitor. And I was taking one or two of those a day, and you're supposed to take one a day. And then the moment that I stopped teaching and I became self-employed, which should theoretically be more stressful, I went from one or two of those pills a day to a pill every couple of weeks. And now it's like once every month or two. So that was the sign that my body was giving me that I was under stress, but I didn't interpret it as that. So I wonder if we can let the listeners know, hey, it might not be the traditional signs that your body is giving you. What do we got there?
Okay. So I had all these things going on. At one point, I had been on 14 prescription pills every day for anxiety, ADHD, insomnia. That's a big one, because up all night because our brains are racing. We don't sleep, then our bodies can't heal. I was in pain all the time. I was on a ton of painkillers. My doctor would say, it's just stress. And he put the word just in front of it. So it minimized it. And then I thought, well, if he's saying it's just stress, it must be my fault. I've had a dozen surgeries, like hip surgery, back surgery, neck surgery. Well, my joint pain was so bad, and I would compensate. I was doing all kinds of things that physically were hurting my body, and I didn't have time to take care of it, right? Conducting all the time. You do things that hurt. So it showed up in me. Brain fog, anxiety. Oh, I didn't think I had anxiety, and then I started to recognize it. And just like you, Alan, the digestive tract. That was where, because I did not understand the brain-gut connection. And all of the from what we eat to the stress we have to the hormones our bodies are throwing out when things are happening, and it impacts all of those things, how we can focus, aches and pains. I was much heavier. I gained a ton of weight. My body, I didn't know what to eat to help my body, and so my body was 75 pounds heavier than I am now. So that hurt to cart that around because my body wasn't meant to do that. My joints were hurting, so I was having surgeries to fix the joint pain until I could get to root cause, and it was the damn stress of the job. I promise you. That was the root cause. Because I wrote a book called I Love My Job, but It's Killing Me. And now I've written one called The Balanced Band Director. I've bridged that gap. My God, it was hard and it took me a long time to figure it out.
Thanks for sharing all that.
So, a couple of the things you suggested, paying a little closer attention to what you were buying at the grocery store, food you were making. I was thinking, okay, yep, these are good. Because I'm thinking about some people in my life who are working on their, call it work life integration, or the job is stressing them out. And one of the first things that pops up when we might discuss, well, could you do this? Could you do that? Is, oh, well, that would take time away from the job, or I would be shortchanging the kids. And then you got to the suggestion about taking a walk. And I thought, okay, that's one that I love. That's one I suggest. And people would respond with, I don't have time. If I do that, that means I'm going to have less time to lesson plan and I'll be shortchanging the kids, or I would need something else to go away and I would be worse at my job, which would be bad for the kids. And I think for some people, at least for me, the work life integration was maybe poor because for me, I really cared a whole lot too much about how the band sounded.
Mhm.
And I think people fall into that category. And then I think there are the others who it is so much about the kids and doing what's right for the kids and giving the kids everything. And I've discovered it's actually way harder to change those people's minds. That if I can say, hey, no one's going to care what your band really sounded like in 20 years or whatever, I can kind of make some progress with that. But when we're talking about, no, I change kids' lives every day, and if I don't lesson plan and have the perfect slide ready, then that's going to be unfair to them. So, how do we start with those folks?
I'm a control freak, so I totally get that, right? I wanted everything to be perfect being in control all the time, I had to seek counseling to figure out how to do that because I didn't know how to put up boundaries. I wanted everybody to like me. Um, then I started to recognize when I'm saying no to exercising, when I'm saying no to doing something for me, or I'm sorry, yes to something else, it's a no for me. So I started doing some things because my counselor told me I had to do this. She said, you're going to put a cover letter on your syllabus and you're going to tell students and parents, these are the hours I'm available. If you need me after those hours, email me and I'll respond within what, she made me put, things that I would do and setting boundaries. And I was terrified to do that. When I passed out my syllabus that following year, and it had that on there. And I said to the kids, I'm not going to be available to just hang out after school so you can have extra practices because we're not getting things done in class and all that. I thought, oh, they're going to be mad. But what I started to notice was when I prioritized things I was needed and wanted to do for myself, I was much more efficient at school. I knew I wasn't going to just hang out with the band room open.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get busy and get things done. And I put boundaries up. For example, I know kids need places to practice, so we do Wednesday band buddies. I'll stay after school 1 day a week. That's when we'll come in and do it. That was a boundary. I could do 1 day a week, but I couldn't do 5. That freed me up after school the other days. So I had to find the space and time to do it. We've all had those kids when we say, hey, look, if you spend a little time practicing, you play better, right? I don't have time to practice. And we're all like, look, if we looked at your phone, if we have time, we may not want to do it. I mean, I don't want to go for a walk after I come home from work. I'm tired. Well, let me tell you, I do go at 5:30 in the morning. I find the time and the space when it works for me.
Let's lift up the analogy of practicing. Because if a student practices, they save time in rehearsal. When you go for a walk, it clears your mind. You actually think about some things and you're more effective when you get back. Like if we can help teachers understand this is like you're frustrated that your students don't practice because if only they did, everything else would be easier, but they just don't get that. Here's what you don't get. If you make a little extra time to shop more thoughtfully, get a little bit of exercise or go for the walk and do one other self-care thing, it's actually going to save you time and free up your time and your mind to be more effective later on.
We all obsessed over instruments and taking care of our instruments and having if you're a reed player, the right reed and all that, right? Our bodies deserve and need that care. If we don't do it, and I know this from personal experience, I would go, and then I would miss chunks of school because I'd be, like I said, hospitalized or having surgeries, some major, major things. And then I wasn't in the classroom, so I was no good for kids. Sub plans, all that. And so then was I really helping kids by running myself ragged and then being gone and then trying to come back again? Or was it better to pace myself so that I could be there all the time? And I like the pacing of stuff. Does that mean that we had to give some things up? Yeah, I sat down with my kids and my students and said, what are the things that are really important for us to do? Because what I started to recognize is when I've had those unhealthy habits of making band my whole life, I expected my students to also. And what was I modeling? Those kids were getting the stress from the AP classes and the college pressure, and now they got some crazy teacher who's like, we got to do this, we got to go to that festival, we got to play this level of music. And when I chilled out a bit, the whole program actually got better.
How long would you say it took you? Let's, for lack of a better term, like when you had either your aha moment or rock bottom or whatever you want to call it, to reaching a point where you felt like, yep, everything is pretty balanced here. We kind of pride ourselves on this podcast of giving listeners things that they can implement tomorrow. And I'm a little worried that in this particular instance, we're going to have people who maybe say, okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to go for a walk, or tomorrow I'm going to set some boundaries. And then maybe it doesn't work, and then they just give up. And I think, kind of back to Alan's practicing analogy, it definitely seems like this is maybe going to be a little bit more of a long term. So I wonder if you could share maybe just how long that took for you.
It's a lifestyle change. It's a decision to do something different, and you change your habits until they become new habits. And you have to decide you want to. I didn't want to because it hadn't gotten quite bad enough that something hit me, but it was in the spring of 2017, in March, where I got to the point where I just said to my husband, I can't go to work. I cannot go to work. I can't make one more decision. I can't be responsible for anything. And I basically stayed in my house, except for doctor's appointments for the next couple months, trying to figure out. And it was gut issues we started the whole thing with. Because my stomach was upset. I was nauseous. I was not eating, but I was still all these things going on. So that was in March. I had a sub the rest of the school year. I couldn't go on our international band trip. My dad, who was a former band director, took the students on their band trip. I mean, that I felt like here I am in my 50s and I can't do my job. Um, Spent a lot of time with doctors, counselors, and then the ultimate thing happened with me is I went to my regular family doctor who I adored, write me prescription after prescription after prescription. And then he said, it's just stress. And he wrote another prescription for inflammation this time, I think it was. I'm like, well, what causes inflammation? He goes, environmental things and food. Here's your prescription. And I'm like, I thought, what? I literally tore up the prescription after I left, didn't fill it. And I was like, I got to start doing something different. The same stuff won't, is just going to get the same results. And so I made a conscious effort. I started seeing a naturopath. My husband said, let's go to a yoga class. Oh my God. I thought it was the hardest thing ever. It was really difficult for me and focusing and being quiet. All of those things were hard and the physical movement. And then I worked on that. And over the summer, when it's nice when you're not teaching in the summer and I just made my health a priority every day. I created habits until they were habits, until I didn't have to think about them. And then when school started that next fall is when I went in with the syllabus that had the new, here's the boundaries here. So when I went back, my students saw a very different person, somebody who had lost a lot of weight. Then I just looked different. I felt different. I had different energy. And they knew something was different. And I said to them, I've made some big changes since last year. I had to do it to make sure I could continue teaching and still be healthy. And so I said, here are the things that are going to be different. And here's why. And I will give you all I can while I'm here, but I'm going to stop doing a lot of these extra things. We're going to pick some things that are really important and focus on those. And it was kind of hard at first, but really not, because kids really were respectful. They appreciated it. And then I think it relieved their stress levels a little. Um, and I would say that first year back after that fall apart, it was learning the ropes again, learning how to take what I had done all summer and integrate that now when school started. And because I had intentionally, I didn't change all the habits at once. It was one at a time. In fact, so April 1st of that year, or of the following year, it actually was, I'm great at habit changing, and because I do it a little bit at a time. But I wanted to start after I'd lost a bunch of weight and I was in pretty good shape, and my arms would jiggle when I conducted. I hated the extra flab that was there. So I was like, I know the only way to get rid of that is like some lifting or something. So I started to do, I'm like, I'm going to do push-ups. And I got down on the floor and I got all the way down and I started to push up and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do
Yeah.
push-ups plural. We're doing a push-up today. So I
Yeah.
did, and that was it. April 2nd, I did 2 push-ups and they were both really hard. April 3rd, I did 3. Each morning I started adding a push-up. And by April 15th, I did 15 push-ups. They were hard, but not as hard as the first day. And so I was pretty proud of myself. And on April 16th, I'm like, oh my God, there is no way. I knew I'd met my limit. So I did 15 push-ups again. And then about 10 minutes later, I did 15 more. So I did 30 push-ups. So by the end of April, I ended up doing 4 sets of push-ups every day. I was doing 60 push-ups on the end of April, and I could barely do one on the 1st. If I had tried to do 60 push-ups on April 1st, you can bet I wouldn't have done anything April 2nd. It's biting off a tiny bit. It's not teaching the kids the chromatic scale on day one.
Yeah.
It's how do we
Right.
open the case so the instrument doesn't fall out.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier where you said you returned to school and you told the students, okay, there's going to be some changes. And that was kind of difficult. Let's prepare our listeners a little bit. Could you maybe think about one or two specific things that were difficult? Because sometimes I think it's a good exercise if we know, oh, it's going to be this. And actually, you know what? That isn't really that difficult. That's not so bad after all. So, could you list a difficulty or two that you encountered when you made this change?
It started off great in September, the new enthusiasm, school year, and all that. Come October, it was starting to get hard. It was harder to do the walking because in Seattle it's dark and rainy and yucky. So that became harder, which meant I wasn't as easy to get the physical stuff in. I could feel what that would do to me. Then I beat myself up. I'm like, oh, I didn't walk today. And I had to ask for help when I couldn't do things. And I had to say no. I had a great coach that taught me if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. That was really important. And I think I alluded to earlier, I'm a people pleaser. So I still wanted to make people happy. I didn't want the athletic director upset if I didn't have the band at the game or what. But at the same time, I had to to look at what was best for the program and my students and really get that the focus. So those things were hard. It was hard to have some conversations. I remember one conversation with my principal who said, Lesley, listen, and I loved my principal. He said, the football boosters had a meeting last week and they were thinking the band could do some different things now. And I said, hold on here. We don't have band booster meetings to talk about how the team could win more football games. So we're not even going there. But the younger me would have let that football booster team intimidate me into doing pregame stuff or doing extra things. So having to think through things and I don't want to say stand up to administrators, but work with my administrators and help them see that even though I had done all of this stuff in the past, we were redirecting things. So it was really hard because I had a community that was doing one thing and it couldn't all be about me. I had to make sure it was about my community. And if I couldn't serve them anymore, then I didn't belong there. But we redid the program in a way that turned out to be pretty darn healthy. It's an ongoing thing too.
So, to the listener right now who maybe has some very young children at home and is completely sleep deprived and knows that they are not eating well and knows they aren't moving and needs to do more, but it all just seems so overwhelming. Where do you start? What's the first thing?
Asking for help if you can. I remember when my kids were young, my friend Julie was the PE teacher and she had young kids too. So we would take turns packing lunches for each other. I'd do them one week, she'd do them the next week. Just little things like that to help each other out. It's so hard with the kids. I'm not gonna lie. I remember taking my middle daughter when she was must have been about 4 months old, and I was at the Tacoma Dome for basketball playoffs, sitting in the girls' bathroom nursing. So I can relate to those women often I think have that burden too. For me, it meant when my kids were younger, putting them in the stroller to go for walks, cooking together, and I actually started doing that as an empty nester. My youngest daughter comes back and we do meal prep once a week. It helps her because she's a busy girl, a busy woman now. So I help her on Sundays meal prep for the week. When my kids were younger, I would do that whenever I could on Sundays. We'd do some family, let's pack stuff up as much as we can. It's much easier now that I'm an empty nester. I'm not going to lie and pretend that, hey, I could have done all this when my kids were young. I wish when my kids were young, I might not have taught high school. Now that I went to middle school 4 years ago, that was part of keeping my boundaries healthy for me. And I kind of look back and think maybe I wish I had done that sooner because I could have been with my own children in the evenings. So I have a lot of second guessing of things, but it's a lot when you have the kids and sneaking in the time when you can. I always got up before my children to do a lot of things because I've just always been a morning person. Finding the time that you work the best or that is best for you and taking it is feels selfish until you feel refreshed enough and better for your kids later. It's not selfish.
And how about at work? A good first step. We're feeling completely swamped. We've got the pep bands and the early morning rehearsals, and we are trying to do all of this stuff. What might be your first step for someone who wants to make a change there?
Well, for me, it was looking at that pet band piece. Um, am I required to take the band to this many events? And I went to my principal and said, these are the kids that are at school at 6:30 in the morning. They're taking honors classes all day. Now you want them at a football game um, uh, on a Thursday night, and then they're back at school Friday morning. I said, we got to be more judicious with how we're doing things. For me, I brought people on board. I had a booster group that I got going. And again, this was hard. Running a booster group and getting it started is kind of hard, but God, what an investment. That can become this machine that runs behind the scenes. But starting that as something when you're already overwhelmed can feel that's not my first go-to. Oh, you're overwhelmed, start a booster group. If you get a good booster group behind the scenes, they can do a lot of that heavy lifting. A lot. And in my third book, I talk about PSA, prioritizing, simplifying, and automating wherever possible.
Mm-hmm.
Prioritize. Everything used to be an emergency for me, right? From a kid needs a permission slip copy right now to we have to have a fire drill. I mean, everything just felt urgent until I could stop, take a breath, and really prioritize. Is this really a emergency situation, or is this a I can do it later, or does this really need my attention, and or should can it go somewhere else? And learning to prioritize has gotten super fast for me. That's something as people are trying to figure all this out, just as you're going through your day, is this a priority for me to work on now or not? Oftentimes I'd worry about stupid things like what font am I going to use for this newsletter? Oh, for God's sakes, just pick one and go,
Yeah.
right? Got it. And then simplifying. I'm married to an engineer, so he likes to complicate everything, and he's a trumpet player. So I had to learn to how can I do things simpler, whether from explanations to being whatever I'm doing, and simplifying paperwork or whatever. And when I can, that has helped a lot. And then what can you automate? We have computer stuff and all kinds of things we can use to assist us with things. I've created a lot of things. One's band director buddy GPT AI that does a lot of your behind the scenes stuff for music teachers, so they can spend time on things that really are more important for student learning than fixing out the newsletter for parents. Like, let AI do that. You tell it what you need it to do. Let it do that and get it all sent out for you so you can focus on other things. So that automation piece, especially nowadays, can be really big in time saving, whether it's planning or preparing or communicating, recruiting, retention, all of lesson planning, differentiating. It's great for that. I have a whole different set of AI thoughts for classrooms. So we want, or for using it with students, I think that's a different story. But I think it's a great tool for teachers who are overwhelmed and overworked.
Yeah, I also wanted to speak with you about productivity because I know that's something you're passionate about as well. And it kind of, as I was heading into the interview, was thinking about these as, oh, two separate things. We're going to talk about wellness and then we're going to talk about productivity. And you just so beautifully demonstrated how intertwined those two things could be. Before we get a little bit further on the productivity, though, I do want to take one last moment to sort of encourage listeners as they're thinking about, well, I need to do this many performances or this many honor groups or this many early morning rehearsals. You said something about in addition to it burning you out, we were also kind of burning the students out. And much like we put on an act for our students sometimes that we can handle all of this and we're not getting burnt out and we can do it, I think sometimes the students and their families are doing the same thing for us. And we might interpret it as, oh, they want to go to this many competitions. They want to have this many concerts. They want to have all of these rehearsals. And then we kind of realize that there's maybe sort of this unspoken dirty secret between the two of us. Like, yeah, we're both parties are kind of stressed out about all of this, but neither one wants to disappoint the other. So I encourage listeners to think long and hard about that before you say, oh, no, I owe it to the students, or we've always done it this way, or the students and the families expect X, Y, and Z. It's like, yeah, maybe they are expecting it. Doesn't mean they want it necessarily. And maybe they're just putting on a good face.
That's what I found. When we narrowed down what we were doing to the ones that everybody really did want to do, we had more fun with those. We put more energy into those, and we weren't spread so thin. It was, I
Let's
think, healthier for everybody.
Yeah. Well, let's keep talking about productivity. What else? You gave us some great stuff already. Referenced some of your books and the AI. Let's maybe even start with you said the fonts. I was stressing out about the fonts. In my experience, this is something band directors do a lot. And Alan, I think, heard me say sort of an uncouth version of this a long time ago that he might use in some of his workshops now. But I said something like that band director is focusing on the wrong stuff. Are
Stuff.
Yes, stuff. Are you noticing that that is maybe a starting point for some of the stressors or the lack of productivity is that we're putting our focus on things that maybe haven't earned it?
Yep.
We're focusing on the wrong stuff like fonts. What's our next step at that point? We just recognize it and then drop it and ask ourselves, is this really
So,
important? How did you get yourself to kind of drop the importance of the font in the newsletter?
so here's a piece of it is I used to wonder, what does it mean to be mindful? People talk about it all the time. Be aware, be mindful. And that's where it comes in there, Steve, is being mindful of what am I doing, and is this a waste of time, or is this just a habit that I have? Is walking to my mailbox 3 times a day at school really necessary? Or is this just a habit that I have because I want to socialize? Every time I do something, I try to ask myself, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Eating in front of the TV, there's mindfulness, right? So we do things sometimes without thinking. So being aware when you're doing something, That's part of one of my books is one of is I call it the Empower Method and being mindful of what we're doing so that we can change it. You can't change what you're not thinking about. You go into a rehearsal, you're mindful of how the students are playing so that you can how and sometimes you like might be hyper focused one day on being mindful of their intonation because you're working on it. So you're really mindful of that and things you're doing that are influencing that, what's interfering with that. And so you're taking care of things to help with the intonation. Other days you might be more mindful of other things. Now you're still thinking of other things, but that mindfulness on is what I'm doing a waste of time? Is this helping what I me get to my goal? And I really think more deeply about things than I used to, than I just instead of just doing stuff. And that helps not waste time. Picking up our damn phones, right? Wasting time on the phones, wasting time. Should I be doing, is this helping me be productive? And maybe if I want to be searching recipes, it is. Being mindful of what we're spending our time on so we can ask ourselves, does the font matter? Because visuals are important and the font may really matter. So just asking yourself when you're finding yourself spending time doing. And I think we get into loops where we just do things out of habit. So something I like to work with people on is breaking habits and making us think differently about what we're doing. Try tomorrow morning or the next time you're going to brush your teeth. Do it with your non-dominant hand and notice what happens. I bet you sit there when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm like, okay, what's on my to-do list? So when I do it with my other hand, it's like, God, can I keep my toothbrush in my mouth? And I just jab myself. And suddenly my thought patterns are completely different. I do something just differently. Try that. Try eating with your non-dominant hand. When you're doing something like that, your brain has to suddenly switch differently and it changes things. So if you find yourself stuck about, doing something with a font, can you distract yourself? But you see my point with this?
Yeah, that all sounds very useful, as did you mentioned earlier your books and band director buddy GPT. Can you tell us a little bit more about those and how those might help our listeners?
Well, I wrote my first book, which is called I Love My Job, but It's Killing Me because I loved my job. But I literally, when I got to that point in 2017, I was at that whole, come to Jesus moment. What am I going to do now? Can I continue teaching? This was all I ever, my grandma was a music teacher. My dad was a band director. And I had been teaching at that point for 30 years. And I didn't think I could keep doing it. I watched my best friend, Lori, die. She had when she called me with the stage 4 ovarian cancer, she put off and put off and put off going to the doctor. She called it, she went in at stage 4. That was my wake up call. That's when my body also gave up and we spent many, many months together towards the end of her life. So as she was going down one path, and I had that aha moment and decided I'm taking another path. I stayed with her one weekend because her husband was out of town and I had to change the colostomy bag and do those things for her. And she said, Lesley, you figured out what to do and you're going to be okay. You got to help other people. And so I'm like, well, what do I do? And so then I thought about it and I was like, I'll write a lesson plan for teachers who are feeling like I was and who want to feel like I feel now so they can keep doing this. And so my first book is essentially a lesson plan. You take quizzes, it helps you figure out, where are your stressors, where are your physical, what's affecting you physically, mentally, emotionally, and all of those things. And what can you do about it? Where do you start? What small steps can you take? So that's book one. I did a second book called Love the Job, Lose the Stress. What a dumb title for a book when you complete the manuscript 3 days before school shuts down for a pandemic. Tell me one teacher at that point that had no stress. So that one was like, ah. And then I just did one called The Balanced Band Director, where I share all the nuggets I wish I'd had many, many decades ago that might have saved me a lot of this gray hair. But the things that I've done and that I can share with other people to do to feel amazing. I mean, I feel better at 60 than I did in my 20s, 30s, 40s when I was running myself ragged. Being a band director in a big ass high school it's not a one person job, but one person is paid to do it. And at least in my case, and it just was too much. And so I feel very fortunate to have found a way to stay in the profession. It was my calling. I feel compelled to share that with future music educators so they don't have to learn the hard way. And I just see it's a hard gig, but it is so, so rewarding. And that's also why I've created the GPT, Band Director Buddy GPTs, to help band directors do the work really well, sustainably. And then I host the Band Director Bootcamp podcast so we can have conversations with people who can help with productivity and wellness tips to share with other band directors because this is such important work. And then one of my favorite things is the band director boot camp, band director boot camp retreat is to work with music teachers where we sit down and we dig into their, what's your situation at school? What's your personal situation? How can you maximize both of those? Because being a mom, being a parent, being a spouse, being a teacher are all incredible things. And I want to maximize all of that without burning out and killing myself. So that's what I'm trying to help other people do. And I'm stepping out of this in another year or so. I just want to pass the baton with as much information as I can.
All right, so listeners, check out those resources on our website. And Lesley, can you stick around for our lightning round questions?
Oh, okie dokie.
Okay, here you go. Quick answers to favorite restaurant in Seattle.
It's Azul, and it's in our hometown here. We can walk down to it, and it's because I don't eat fries except at Azul. So it's a big deal. They have the best shoestring fries.
A musical artist, group, or even just a song you want more people to know about.
Formation Wind Band is an all-women's concert band in Seattle. I've been playing in that, and it's gotten so big we've had to split into two groups, but it's all women, many of whom are music teachers, playing together in a band, and I think that's pretty remarkable. They played at we played at our state conference last year, so that's pretty cool. I think everybody should know about that.
How about a favorite show or film you've watched recently?
We've been watching Matlock with the remake. What's her name? I love her, Kathy Bates. Yeah, so we watched the last one that's out last night, so we'll have to wait for that next one to come out.
How about the most memorable musical performance you've attended?
3 times I've had the privilege of conducting at Carnegie Hall. And I got to tell you, I invited my dad to conduct the band on its opening number each time. Each time I did it, one of my children was a senior in the band, and then I conducted. So 3 times sharing the Carnegie Hall stage with 3 generations, I can't pick.
And finally, a book recommendation for our listeners, please.
Well, we're talking to music teachers, so I got to say, if you haven't read Matthew Arau's Upbeat Leadership book, that's a must read. Matthew's the most genuine human on the planet, and his book is just great for teachers who want to have some really incredible programs and build that leadership within. So,
let the record show that we do have a past episode with Dr. Matthew Arau if you want to check that out. And as we record this,
I'm 2 blocks from him.
You are 2 blocks. Yes, Dr. Shanley is within yards of Dr. Arau. Right?
Oh, you said Wisconsin.
So there we go.
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
Lesley Moffat, your hair is fantastic, by the way, and we appreciate very much what you've offered for us today. Really important signs to look out for and ways to cope. Wellness can help us thrive even in stressful situations. And you're a great role model for that. It's been awesome to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Music Ed Insights.
We're supported by Group Dynamic, a leading provider of youth leadership workshops. Alan works with dozens of schools each year to help develop their leaders. Learn more at groupdynamicyouth.com.
Or you could email me at alan@groupdynamic.net. You could also learn about Steve's arrangements, compositions, and program consulting at steveshanley.com.
Or email me, steve.shanley@gmail.com.
Our Facebook page is Music Ed Insights.
Our website has program notes, links, and information about our Insider program. That's musicedinsights.com.
Insiders get ad-free episodes and a 1-page download of this episode's key takeaways.
Expect episodes most Mondays during the school year.
Get current.
Stay relevant.
Music Ed Insights.